This is Demetri Martin talking, and you're hearing my voice on and in relation to ShowbizMonkeys.com.
Around this town, I'm alright. Around this town, I'm alright. I mean, no consequence when you playing with the fire. Move to the left.
I'm personally really excited that you're heading out on tour across Western Canada. What are you looking forward to on the tour?
I'm looking forward to, I guess, maybe three things. One, trying out a bunch of the new material I've written.
Mm-hmm.
Two, touring with the other comedians, because I don't often tour with that many people. So it should be fun. We're all going to travel together, I'm assuming, so that should be fun. I like all the comedians who I'm doing the shows with, John Doerr, Levi McDougall, and Todd Glass. So that should be cool. And finally, just going to some cities I haven't been to before. I haven't been to Winnipeg, and I've not been to Kelowna. I haven't been there. There are a few others.
You mentioned one of the things you're looking forward to is working on new materials, or working it out, kind of.
Yeah.
Is that material planned for, a new special sometime in the near future?
Yeah, I'm hoping in the spring I'll shoot a new special and record another stand-up album, and then hopefully that'll go well. I do mostly shorter jokes, so I need to kind of have a pile of jokes ready to go to get the thing to work. And every crowd's a little different, so, depending on how many shows I get to do before I shoot something, that gives me a sense of which ones I should gamble on. Because, I don't know, some nights I think, oh, cool, that joke works, and then a couple nights later I'm like, uh-oh. Something happened. The joke doesn't work anymore, or this crowd doesn't like me. I don't know what's going on here. So I think I need to get back to taping my shows. I used to record my shows, but then I'd never listen to it because I don't want to hear it. So I try to remember. And a lot of the jokes, I write them. They're written out, so I know the words. But a good number of them, I kind of write them on stage, or I change things a little bit, and just the way it comes out, that's the way it worked that night, so I try to remember.
I know these are obviously big theater shows, but at this stage, are you still getting out to open mics and smaller shows just to work on that material?
Yeah. Whether I'm in LA or New York, I try to hit a lot of those rooms, which is really fun, and you can really experiment and just try stuff because the stakes are really low.
For sure. Now, I've been following your career for quite a while. I think the first time I saw you was you did a really, really old episode of Last Call with Carson Daly when he was still shooting out of, I think, the SNL studios.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there was no YouTube. YouTube wasn't big yet or anything, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing those spots, and they came and went, which was kind of nice.
Now, over the years, obviously you're known for a particular style you mentioned before. You have shorter jokes and things like that. But have you noticed your style kind of develop and grow?
A little bit, yeah. The way I started was doing short sets around New York, wherever I could get up, and some comedy clubs, but a lot of the rooms were, what they called the alternative rooms. Mm-hmm. And I would do my 10-minute or 15 or 7-minute set, just do as many jokes as I could in the time that I had. But then I started to experiment with drawings or playing some music or different kinds of storytelling devices or whatever I was doing. And then when I started to headline, it was nice because I could put a lot of my chunks of material together into an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Eventually doing a theater, especially if I didn't bring an opener, I would do 90 minutes. So what I found was I could stand up there and tell, an hour and 15 minutes of jokes, or I could mix it up and do 15 or 20 minutes of jokes and then, 7 or 10 minutes of jokes with drawings, and then back to jokes and tell a story, and then do a little guitar bit or something. And it gave the show an arc and gave it almost little acts or segments, each having a beginning, middle, and end. So
yeah,
it made me cognizant of a larger structure. And then that led around the same time to doing scripted narrative, let's call them one-man shows that I did mostly in Edinburgh at the Fringe Festival, Scotland, and I did it in Australia and Melbourne. and you do 28 or 30 shows.
Yeah.
And you just do the same show every night at the same time. But at the same time, my first love really is just doing a looser show that has this spine of jokes to it. But I also have the freedom to improvise or go off in a different direction or tell a story if it pops into my head or something. So, yeah, that's where I'm at now. And for touring especially, it's nice to have that looseness and freedom and to be writing while you're touring and developing stuff while you're on the road. It's nice.
Yeah, I guess if you're doing feature sets, even if you're not able to get to open mics all the time, because you've got all this material that you know works, you can throw in some new stuff in between it. And if it doesn't happen to work, you've got something else that you know is solid right afterwards.
Yeah, it's usually like having these parachutes. Like if I get into trouble, I'll have a way to save myself before I hit the ground.
Yeah. I want to talk briefly about some of your television work, because even though I discovered your stand-up first, obviously you did some great stuff on TV first with The Daily Show.
Yeah.
As the youth correspondent, I think you were most of the time called.
Yeah.
They seemed more than any other cast member or writer that they've had, they kind of allowed you to kind of do your own thing there. Was that your request, or did they just see that you had this unique idea and they wanted you to run with it?
I was happy to have that opportunity. They brought me in and said, hey, we think maybe you could do something on the show. And I said, yeah, of course. I was excited, but I can't remember how I said it, but I said, basically, are you sure you have the right guy? Because I don't really do topical stuff. I'm not very politically oriented. And they said, no, we want to have, different voices here. And, if you can pitch us something that'll fit with the show, we'll give it a shot. So I came back a week later and I pitched them 4 or 5 ideas for kind of an ongoing segment or character. And it was like a trend spotter, a youth correspondent, and another one, I can't remember what the other ones were. Maybe there's some sort of investigative reporter thing. And they said, you know what, like the trend youth thing, like let's combine those two. Like we like that. And that was, I guess, related enough to what they do that they found space for me in the show. So I was grateful because I can do political humor and I can do that kind of stuff if that's what the job calls for, but I'm not really drawn to it. I like things that are a little less relevant. So the youth correspondent was kind of a nice middle ground between the two. Yeah,
I think it definitely worked for audiences.
Yeah.
And I guess it worked for you because if I recall the timing, you went right from there to getting the Comedy Central deal for Important Things.
Yeah, it was pretty much around that time.
That was a show that, in my and several other people's opinions, ended a little too soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were fine with that at the time or if you were hoping to be able to do a little bit more with that.
Yeah, I was kind of ambivalent. After the first season, it was too hard. I made the show too difficult given the amount of time and money that we had. I just tried to cram so much into the show, and it was exhausting. And after the first season, I thought, I don't think I need to do this again. I'm not a sketch comedy guy, but I got to practice acting and doing sketches and being in scenes. So cool, thank you. And I was ready to move on. And then I got picked up for the second season, and my agent said, oh, you have to, if you get picked up, you have to do it. You can't just blow it, I said, okay. So then I moved the show to California because I thought it might be easier to produce it in California. And it was. I still made it hard for myself, but California was easier to get locations, the weather, it's the whole thing was a lot easier than trying to do it in New York. And so halfway through the second season, or somewhere around there, I felt like, okay, I get what this show is. Like, I could do another season of this. But I was still really tired, and it was like hard to keep my stand-up act growing while I was doing the show. Mm-hmm. And then we got canceled, so it was all a moot point. So I was like, okay, well, I guess then we're done.
Yeah.
And then after a couple of years, I remember thinking, it would have been nice to do 3 seasons just to have a little bit more of that work there, But I certainly was relieved to not have to worry about coming up with, because I made it hard even though they were kind of loosely related, the sketches were still supposed to be kind of all on a specific topic, for each episode, more or less. So there was like this weird constraint. So it wasn't just about coming up with material to fill each episode. It was like, well, is that really related enough. You know, it was like I just made it harder for myself.
But as an audience member, the connections were kind of cool.
Yeah, I think it was a cool thing. Yeah, I'm glad I did it.
The other thing that I found really interesting out of that show is you had a couple people working. Well, you had lots of great people working on the show, but you had John Benjamin and Nathan Fielder.
Yeah.
Working. And then right after your show, John Benjamin got his show with Nathan Fielder on it.
Yeah, they met on my show.
And then they eventually just gave Nathan his own show.
Yeah.
So your show kind of bred this Comedy Central behemoth.
Yeah, I feel like kind of grateful about being part of that. That those guys, who are obviously very funny guys and do their own thing, it was cool that I got to have them on my show and that they worked together and then hit it off well enough.
You mentioned being able to kind of work on your acting with important things and kind of experiment more, even though you weren't a sketch comedian. But a little before then, and certainly after then, you've done quite a bit of acting, whether it's bit parts or obviously lengthier parts like Taking Woodstock, which I thought was really, really good.
Thanks.
Do you want to delve more into dramatic or semi-dramatic roles like that? Is that something you want to continue to do?
Yeah, if I get opportunities, I enjoy it, and it's a nice challenge, and it teaches me a lot about storytelling and I guess coming at things from a different angle, from a different side of it. I still love jokes, and I spend a lot of my time daydreaming and writing down those kinds of ideas, trying to write short stories and writing films and acting in something that I wrote, or if I get cast in someone else's thing, it's nice. And also, after you've been touring a while, sometimes it is nice to fantasize about making a living without traveling.
Mm-hmm.
Think, it's really nice to just sleep in my own bed and have a regular routine and actually have friends I can see pretty regularly, and then go to my job and go work on a show. So some of my friends who end up on a series or something, I can see what's nice about it, lifestyle-wise. But nothing too much that would take me away from stand-up.
You still consider yourself a stand-up through and through?
Yeah, pretty much.
ShowbizMonkeys.com